Playoffs is the biggest stage for you to show like what you're capable of. Every single moment is super high pressure. Every single thing you do matters.
One step away from greatness, success is what you make it. Little voice inside my head said there's a chance you should take it. The kids I grew up with telling me I made it as I stand on this mountain, look at all my haters' faces. They say it all came too fast with trade places. It's more to the story, man, it's more to the pages. I do it cause I love it and losing is outdated. Now look at this problem that you created. Let's go!
TSM's best ever season. First split in the North American LCS, and they make it to playoffs. Team Liquid topple a giant to take the series. CLG feels like the faith's starting to pick up.
Cloud9 locking in that third seed for the playoffs.
That's the game, that's the match, that's playoffs secured for Immortals.
People think that TSM and Immortals are probably the top teams, but I do actually think that we can beat those two teams.
We're by far the underdogs. This is like our last opportunity to actually show like how good we can be.
We have like more to prove as a team. I think it's like more in line for us this split.
From last split, we got third place. It can prove that Immortals is gonna do well.
I want a 3-peat, and I know we can do it. And most people either step up or they don't.
I'm a champion.
After coming really close to taking first last split, with this roster, we don't really have any excuses.
Yeah, where the winners ride.
Let's go. Yeah, I'ma be a champion. Yeah, I'ma take it to the top. Yeah, it's time to rise, so let's go. Whoa.
Being 6, it doesn't really matter. I want to win.
We don't do well, and we don't make Toronto. It's do or die right now.
Placing second is a failure. I want to just win the whole thing.
We really need to work on really hard to get first places.
Comes down to like one play, we're gonna be the team that takes advantage of the other team's mistake.
So last time in Vegas, we were really close to winning, and this time in Toronto, we'll win for sure.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2016 North American LCS playoffs. Today, 2 of our top 6 teams embark on the next step in their journey towards the Summer Split Championship, and fans have packed the Battle Arena to see our teams duke it out in our first quarterfinal matchup. Meteos arrived ahead of his team a little bit earlier today, ready to go for today's matches. There on the opposite side of the rift is Team Envy, Laud, and Hakuho in their first playoff performance, alongside Seraph, who's the focus of our alt stream today. Thank you, everyone, for watching with us this afternoon. I'm James Dash Patterson, joined once again to break down all the action by Mark Zimmerman and Alberto Crumsargifo. Gentlemen, you've been with me all season long, but here we are into the postseason. How excited are you to watch the top-tier talent in NA go up against each other?
I'm super pumped because this is like crunch time. This is when everything you've been working for all season finally pays off. You get to see how you stack up against the best people in the league. No more, messing around with new picks. You really have to perform on today.
I don't know about you guys, but it's been 2 weeks, and I've been dying to see some league action, covering it all split long. This is the culmination of the strength of these teams, and it's about time that we can actually determine who is the best.
All right, well, with that, then, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for the Summer Split postseason. Today, third-place finisher Cloud9 battles against 6th seed Team Envy, while Counterlogic Gaming and Liquid face off tomorrow in a rematch of the Spring Split semifinal showdown. Now, TSM and Immortals, they finished the regular season in the 1 and 2 positions, so they've earned themselves a bye into the semifinals next week. Now, regardless of who wins this weekend, the lower-seeded team will face TSM, and the higher-seeded team will go up against Immortals. That's important because if Envy then wins today, that changes things up, right? Now, before we get into any more of that, there's more than the North American crown on the line here. Championship points and the chance to represent North America on the world stage is also at stake. So let's get a little refresher on where teams are currently positioned and what they stand to gain during playoffs. The first column here shows each team's current points. You can see that CLG, TSM, and Immortals are the top dogs for their top placement in spring. Now, the second column are the current points awarded for summer. TSM and Immortals with a guaranteed 40 since they have a bye to the semi. So this is representative of the minimum amount of points that the teams can secure based on where they are currently. Of course, if they go further into the playoffs, they will secure more points. But right now, it looks like CLG and TSM locked together in that tie there for what would have been the second qualified position to Worlds. Now, more are on the table, with first place in Summer auto-qualifying for Worlds. Then second place earns 90 points, third gets 70, and fourth takes 40, while fifth and sixth earn 20 each. Now, the team that ends the year with the most points earns the second seed to Worlds, and the remaining 4 playoff teams will face off in the regional qualifier. A lot of information, a lot of stuff to parse through there, but ultimately 3 of our teams will be representing North America at Worlds, and it's decided starting from here, moving through the conclusion of the regional qualifier. Before we get into today's matchup, let's talk a little bit about the state of the game in playoffs with the introduction of patch 615. We've seen it in a few other regions. Less lane swaps are happening. How do you guys feel about this change?
I think it impacts the junglers a lot, particularly with Rek'Sai and Nidalee being the strongest early game junglers. You just have so much pressure, and it impacts lanes in a way that is unmatched by anything. So we saw over in Europe how difficult it was to deal with the likes of Rek'Sai. So having blue side on this matchup seems like it's almost a guarantee. Either you first pick Rek'Sai or purple side has to ban it.
There's a couple other small changes just in terms of how teams move around the map. Obviously, 2v1s are mostly gone. You see it less. It's more of a fringe strategy now that you can maybe potentially do it. But a lot of teams are focusing heavily on laning phase, and then even if you're winning lane, sometimes people swap out of it just because they have a tempo advantage. They can take the first turret to get that first turret blood gold, basically.
And of course, this is the kind of thing that we will expect to influence picks to some degree. You already mentioned, particularly with the junglers, but also in the likes of those 1v1s and 2v2s top and bot lane. For example, we saw Corki picked up today. Not something that's necessarily meta, but operates a much stronger in a 2v2 laning phase.
And I hope we can see the Vel'Koz out of Jensen, because it's such a strong laner individually, and it needs a lot of influence from the junglers. So if Proxen is not on his game to help Ninja out through the laning phase, Jensen can get a massive lead on his own and will be pretty much unable to be dealt with because it's so easy to just take cleanse and be safe.
All right, let's dial into that matchup then. Today's matchup, where third seed Cloud9 is taking on Team Envy. Now, the boys in blue are heavily favored in this series, but this is the exact spot we found Cloud9 in last split before they got knocked out of the playoffs. So what do they need to do to make sure that they have a different outcome this time around?
I think they just have to prepare really heavily for the pick and ban phase of the series. I feel like that's where a lot of it's going to be decided, with the heavier emphasis on laning phase, as well as the fact that we know Envy is a very counter-pick heavy team. And C9 is more of a standard team. They need to make sure they don't pick themselves into any holes where, like, they're early picking a Gnar blind and then they're getting counterpicked super hard. I think those are the kinds of things they need to be conscious of.
Okay.
And for me, what I'm looking for Envy to do is going to be able to just win through their own counter picks and not go for the wonky style that we saw them towards the end of the split, where they picked these 4 tanks and then just relied on Law to be that kind of magic shred Kog'Maw, which just scales so hard into the late game, but ultimately has poor laning phases all around. And if we go back to their style, which Seraph picking the top lane carries, proxying on his aggressive junglers, maybe even the likes of a Graves if Rek'Sai is not in the pool, and then Ninja having free reign to pick whatever he chooses, hopefully not Ezreal mid this time around. But I think that if they do that, they should be able to give Cloud9 a run for their money.
Now, what about where these teams match up in terms of different points within the game, right? So early, mid, late, who are you giving advantages to based on where we are in the game?
What's interesting is both of them actually played a pretty similar style throughout the season, where both teams were on like top 3 in terms of average game time and bottom 3 in terms of like combined kills, meaning that both of them played relatively slower, not kill-heavy games. And I think that just plays further into C9's strengths. Whenever two teams have similar play styles, the team that's clearly better at those play styles generally wins. And C9 was amazing at vision control throughout the season. I think if it goes late game, that just favors C9. And so I think you, Crumbs was saying, stay away from the Kog'Maw and those kind of baitier late game picks, and they need to look more early game.
And since this is a best of 5, one of the key things in a best of 5 in a long series is the mental fortitude that a lot of these teams have. And Cloud9 has been tried and tested. They have had a lot more raunchy games, if you will, this split, that kind of they didn't get phased too much. They were still able to bring it back for games 2 or game 3, wherever it happened. While Envy, where they kind of lost game 1 and game 2, they kind of lost steam towards the end of the game. So I think that as long as the teams can maintain their composure, that'll ultimately be the one that can come out ahead, because whoever can create the most, I guess, disruption in the opponent and throw them off guard should be able to get a nice psychological edge on their opponent.
And this Cloud9 squad, this is one that has said this split would be different for them. So now is the time for them to prove it, right? But where do C9, rather, where have C9 done a good job in staying ahead of the competition in summer? And Team Envy, right, a second half, they've fallen a bit this split.
Right, and I think Crumbs was mentioning before that there has been this kind of communication barrier in the team, where there's a heavy emphasis on Korean speaking on the top side of the map and English speaking bot side. And just players having to think not just about what they're saying, but how they're saying it is like, is this coming across correctly?
It's an extra step.
Right, it's just this extra difficult thing that you have to deal with, and that's something that was plaguing Envy throughout the season.
All right, well, let's focus then on what Envy could possibly do to come ahead in this matchup. So what would be the keys to victory for this freshman LCS squad, understanding that there might be some communication issues?
I'm looking at their dual lane, specifically Lod and Haku. I think they're really strong laners. We saw them as kind of the stars of the team, rounding out the composition of Koreans within their team. And Lod has been such a star player throughout the split. Obviously, he's not the best AD carry. There's quite a bit of competition there, but he's solid. He brings a lot of damage to his team, and he's such a young talent and a leader that I think that if he can get rolling, it's a lot easier to be comfortable in the position of a shot caller when you're ahead.
Right.
And we have seen Cloud9's dual lane kind of struggle in the laning phase every once in a while, so if the dual lane from Envy can exploit that, come out ahead, maybe with a little bit of help from Proxen, make sure that they can snowball and translate that into that first tower gold, which is absolutely massive, I think that they'll be able to take over a nice lead and snowball the game.
I think another person, look at this, Seraph. He's someone who obviously has some weirder counter picks, and against Impact, who mostly plays the same stuff, he might be able to get an advantage and then transition that to the bot side as well. I think obviously bot side is where the game is kind of won or lost at this point, mostly, but if he can get a snowball-y pick topside that gets ahead of Impact and then starts making TP plays or just draws all the pressure away from the bot lane, he might be able to help snowball the team.
Which I think points light to the Ashe pick right now, which Ashe at level 6, you hit 6, you hit an arrow bottom, free tower, free objective.
Right.
So powerful, sneaky, wonderful Ashe.
All right, well, yeah, we'll be tracking picks across all lanes, but a big part of Envy's map control has come from their leader in the top lane. You just mentioned him, Seraph. So we're going to be looking closely at the top lane in our featured matchup today, which is Impact versus Seraph. Gentlemen, this is a big one. As we mentioned, a lot of it is going to hinge on these two players. Of course, Impact necessarily hasn't hit numbers that we've seen from him in the past, the good old days of being a world champion, but has been a solid performer for the Cloud9 squad this whole split.
And I think you just need to look at the champs played. You see 3 tanks basically for Impact, and on the flip side, for Seraph, you had a bruiser, a mage, and a tank. So they play very different in terms of the champions that they pick.
Well, the meta is kind of already defined, so I think that the player that can find a way to redefine it on the fly and just say, hey, I want to be able to play this into this matchup, because as series develops, the meta within this series is what matters. It's not about what's the actual pick. So if, say, Gnar becomes the biggest priority and the Aurelia counter side can't deal with it, then Gnar is quickly the #1 pick, and people have to try to find a way to trust their team and say, maybe we haven't scrimmed with this, but I have a feeling that I can come out ahead in this matchup without it.
One of the most exciting things about Best of 5 series is the adaptation, the development of the in-series meta itself. I've got to put you guys on the spot, as I always do at this time of the season, asking you for your predictions of this series. Mark, let's start with you.
I'm going to say 3-1 in favor of Cloud9. I think that having Reaper as the coach helps a ton, because as we were saying, the draft phase and adapting throughout the series is going to be a key part of it. And with Envy having such a weird draft, having a mind like Reaper helping you figure out what is really the key parts that you need to react to is going to help them a ton throughout the series, not just the fact that I think that their players are a little better in most positions.
Okay.
Well, I think that C9 has the advantage in this matchup. I don't think it's going to be as easy as it's made out to be. I do think that Envy's going to give them quite a bit of a run for their money, particularly because of the counter picks that they can have, the wide champion select, and the fact that when put on the spot, a lot of the carries, for example, Impact hasn't been that comfortable on the carry matchup. So I think that the top and bottom side for Envy will be their strengths. And it's just a matter of how well can Proxen influence the map. So I do think that Cloud9 will come out ahead with their macro play, but it's going to be close. I'm giving it to them 3-2.
All right, and in a matchup where most people would say this is our most lopsided matchup in North America, we did just see a 6 seed beat a 3 seed in Europe. We'll see if we get the same today. You guys are still giving it to Cloud9. As we continue to move through the playoffs, we'll be highlighting the greatest moments of the summer split. And we want you guys at home to join the conversation, so tweet at LOL Esports with your favorite memories and hype plays from the past 9 weeks, and we'll feature the biggest and brightest moments on our road to Toronto. Now, we're about to head over to our casters, but first, a quick reminder that we are broadcasting an alternate stream experience over on NALCS2 featuring Freak, Dyrus, and Zig. They'll be focusing on the matchup between Impact and Seraph in that top lane. So hop over to that stream if you're interested in a closer look at the top lane. Now, though, it's time for the main event. So the North American quarterfinals starts right now.
C9 has always done well in playoffs. Sneaky and Meteos have won multiple LCS splits, made worlds. Impact is a world champion. They have a ridiculous amount of experience. People are definitely not expecting us to win.
I think we're in a good spot to take it.
Envy is kind of like one of the weaker teams. We'll have a pretty easy first round.
being 6th or 3rd or 4th or 5th, it doesn't really matter. It's playoffs that matters. I want to win. I'm not going to be happy unless we win.
저는 방심은 언제나 하면 안 된다 생각해가지고 왜냐면 일주일 안에 뭐 바뀔 수도 있는 거고.
2 weeks practice and like a new patch, it can go either way.
It's completely like different game. I think we can get a chance to beat them.
This is like our last opportunity, all 5 of us, to actually show like how good we can be.
Cloud9 haven't missed out on any worlds in like their existence. This year won't be one of those years.
Welcome once again to the NALCS Quarterfinals, League fans. I'm Irving DeBisson III, and helping me deliver all the action and hype today is Joshua Jat-Leesman and Aiden Zyrene Moon. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be on the TriCast with you, and we have quite a match today.
Yeah, I'm excited for these finals. I mean, obviously, a little bit of trash talk coming up from Jensen, but like they said, anything can happen in the playoffs, and Cloud9 knows this, coming into the last playoffs as the 3 seed and not making it to semifinals.
All right, well, we're going to get right into the starting lineups on this. First up, it will be Cloud9. That means it is Impact coming out of the top lane. Meteos roaming around in the jungle. Jensen holding it down in mid, and your bot lane for C9 is Sneaky at 80 carry with Smoothie at support and Coach Reaper.
Yeah, and on the other side, it's going to be Team Envy coming in as the 6th seed. We got Seraph in the top lane, Proxen in the jungle, Ninja gonna have a tough matchup against Jensen in the mid lane, Lot at the 80 carry, and Hakuo the support with their Coach Miracle.
And I'm just so excited to see these drafts here from these coaches because both of these teams actually have a lot of those pocket picks, right? We were talking about the Vel'Koz on the desk, and then Ninja has this kind of a weird champion pool that's all over the place, and you don't know what Seraph's going to play as well, and what they've been practicing, because we haven't seen these teams for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and so much of it is, do they have the right champion versus how many champions do they play? Because if you look at the top lane champion pool, we have Seraph playing more than double the top laners that Impact has played. Like, that is actually insane. However, you look at the success rate, it's not necessarily there. Plus, new patch, new lanes, a lot to take into account.
Well, we heard Dash say that Cloud9 was in a very similar position where they had to bring it all, put it all, and leave it on the Rift. We heard Lod saying in that intro that they would be quite disappointed. Hopefully that mentality doesn't strike them too much if they fall behind a game, because they need every bit of positivity here going up against Cloud9. They are right that they are the underdog here.
Yeah, absolutely, and they can't underestimate them because Envy, even though, you know, Cloud9 did lose against the 6th seed last split, there is that question, though, because Envy have almost taken down teams like Immortals. We have seen Envy when they were on their game near the beginning of the split, and some people are like, oh, strength of schedule, but they were actually playing rather well against some of the top teams. They could get back in that form, and that's the question. What have these 2 weeks of practice gotten them?
So far, it's gotten a lot of focus on the mid lane for bans, and a little bit of the top lane focus with Shen and Gangplank, but a first pick priority, Tahm Kench for Cloud9.
I was going to say that there were not many surprises so far in the draft phase because the bans all seemed like some of the highest priority champions on this patch, save for the Cassiopeia, which has been something Jensen has had a lot of success on.
Right.
But then that first pick, Tahm Kench, it's the 3rd most picked top support on this patch, rather. But really not something you see first picked off.
Yeah, especially in North America. It's been very popular in Korea. It's been like hanging around for a bit, but that is really surprising that they unclogged the frog here. And that's like, are they going to play some type of hyper carry for Sneaky? What are they going to do with this pick? Because it enables so many things in your draft later on.
It'd be interesting because they usually have Sneaky off in a side lane now. Does that change with 6:15 and how C9 approaches the game too?
Yeah, well, as far as the approach on the game, one of the other reasons that the support Tahm Kench has been seeing play is because of its global pressure. The reduced channel time on the ultimate from Tahm Kench really allows you to make a lot of ganks. But aside from that, the rest of C9's draft does look a lot like power picks.
Yeah, this looks really good coming through here. I like that the fact that the Sivir was picked up for Envy and the Ashe comes through, range advantage in that 2-on-2 lane, which we are seeing more and more of, and pick potential as well for Cloud9, which is how they started getting back into the split in the middle, where they were like, all right, let's play these Bard Ashe compositions, let's make some picks, and see if that works out for them.
Well, yes, the diverse champion pool is coming in pretty strong for Envy right here. The fact of
game one of possible 5
is he can go mid lane or top lane. Just in Europe in the previous series, we saw Kennen picked into the Gnar as something that can work because the burst with the Proto Belt can be so immense. That could very easily be a Seraph champion. He has more unique top lane picks than anyone else in the North American LCS.
Absolutely. This is something I've been seeing you playing a lot with.
Oh yeah, I've been playing a ton of Kennen top. Kennen is actually very powerful. The teamfight presence, the changes to the ultimate. Kennen was actually disabled for the last 2 patches, and it was catching on at the time, and then it got disabled, so we hadn't seen it in pro play. Now it has some wave clear with the Proto Belt like you were talking about, so one of the weaknesses of the champion was covered up, and now it's just this immense team fighter, which is something that Envy will love, and oh my god.
Well, we'll see how they put that Kennen on the attack, but C9 strikes back as well. The Rek'Sai pickup fell all the way down to a 4th pick for C9, but the Syndra as well locked in for Jensen.
And this is why you can put a lot of your historical split pick ban prep and kind of throw it out the window right here, because looking at these team compositions, we played 44 games for Cloud9 and 42 games for Envy, and not once did Cloud9 pick Tahm Kench, not once did they pick Syndra, and not once did Envy pick Kennen. 3 unique champion picks already in the first game of the playoffs.
Yeah, and even when you look at the bans that were coming through, Vladimir and Lissandra, most banned champions against Envy, neither of them are banned right now against them, and it's not like something picked up first round. So priority is definitely changed on this patch. We'll see what they end up doing here, because that could be mid, could be top Kennen. I think they just pick a power pick mid here and try to counter that Syndra.
I think specifically because the Syndra's there, they're not going to put the Kennen into it, but the Lissandra does make a lot of sense. As you mentioned, it was banned 48% of the time against them during the regular season. They can pick it right now, and they can flex it wherever they want. Either of these champions can go to either solo lane, and they have until 20 seconds to make their final swap.
I think they hold it like this, and then they swap it. There they go. Swap it back again. Do it one more time. Back and forth, but still, I think that the Lissandra is definitely the better matchup here.
Yeah,
Lissandra
so
has great wave clear and matches the Syndra.
And I think these champion selects also set us up for a lot of team fights, Riv, because there's a huge amount of initiation on both sides. Like, there are crowd control or initiation aiding abilities on every single player. So that could not even be team fights. That could just be picks and fights all over the map.
Yeah, and I love that Cloud9, they have a little bit of a pick composition with the Syndra and the Ashe, and they have ways to actually get people out of position with the Tahm Kench ultimate. But then you look at Envy's comp, it's just team fight through and through. They want to run at you, they want to engage, and that's been one of the things that Envy have needed to kind of gravitate towards, because their teamwork has been all over the place, and it's much easier to execute on these types of compositions.
Well, you love it, chat. Zyrene, you love it. There's a lot of love in the air, so you better head over to Twitter, share your love as well, make your predictions, tweet hashtag C9win or hashtag EnvyWin for who you think is going to pull out of this quarterfinal matchup. We'll tally your votes and check back in a few minutes. What a way to start things off. Like Jad said, not how we expected. And with even the new patch of 6.15 now being implemented into the NALCS play, we're going to get even more different play once we hit the Rift. So you are talking about big level 6s. Those are going to have a huge impact if they're starting to rotate around for those first turrets at that level 6 as well. We're about to be on the Rift. It's Cloud9 versus Envy in our first matchup of the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and what I also find very interesting about these drafts is we're most likely to see standard lanes. It doesn't guarantee that we see a standard start.
Absolutely.
As in the Korean semifinals, we actually saw a very early jungle invade, and they were just able to kill Blank when he was starting his jungle in the KT versus SKT series. But we also have melee supports on both sides, which means that they could have gone with something like a Soraka and tried to play a stronger laning phase, but they didn't because they wanted the utility that these tanks bring, and they think they can get away with the laning phase.
Yeah, and I think that both of these supports actually bring so much to these team compositions with the pick of the Tahm Kench and also the team fighting prowess of the Braum. There are a couple things here that are a little bit different. When we look at a patch that comes through that makes you play standard lanes, this also means your jungler is freed up. Proxen's freed up, Meteos is freed up, they're level 3s. I'm really interested to see what happens here because the Syndra kind of shouts to me that level 3 gank may come through here in favor of Cloud9.
Yeah, and you see Ninja has the teleport, so he has no cleanse if Jensen would be on the money with his stun. I think that's a very real possibility.
Sneaky too.
Even beyond that, I do feel like the Rek'Sai has become the #1 jungler on this patch because of the Tiamat rush, which can just accelerate your jungle and give you more overall jungle pressure. All of that is yet to be revealed, obviously, and we're seeing both junglers start on the same side of the map, so there's a good chance they can meet up.
And speaking of meeting up, Cloud9 gonna get found out there. Nobody's gonna start on their buff, or their, I guess their camp.
Yeah, I think that was basically just... we're going to see a lot of these little mind games as the dual lanes start, because if one team can get a camp and the other team doesn't take a camp, it's a huge lane advantage. So you'll either see both teams taking a camp or one team invading to prevent the camp start for a dual lane.
Looks like junglers are going to end up both on that bottom side here as we start off, so we may get a little bit of action. Also seeing a lot more teleports for those top laners come in lately due to that action being in the bottom lane at a possible level 6. It doesn't look like anybody's going to gain too much brush control right now. Smoothie and Hakuo just trading back and forth here.
Tom Kent is so good into other melee supports.
Yeah.
Because he's going to get eaten right up if he goes too far forward, but...
Oh, you got to make sure. Sneaky's trying to farm waves here. Smoothie's still trying to fight. A little bit of miscommunication. Or rather, Smoothie got himself caught out as well.
But Meteos is coming down right now. He's at that Scuttle Crab.
Meteos has done a very interesting route, and this is going to differentiate him from Proxen. He's actually gone with 3 small camps into Scuttle Crab, so no buffs as of yet. Really heavy on experience, but not huge in combat power. Just make sure he gets river control. We've seen a lot of junglers do modified routes to get the bottom lane Scuttle Crab before the other team. This time, Meteos gets it uncontested, and even though the supports were trading very heavily, that's why they bring 4 biscuits to the lane. They're most likely just going to use a bunch of health pots, and we'll get to see if we do get an early gank. Proxen saw the Scuttle Crab, realizes he can't go through the river.
Yep, and that actually stopped him from going over there. But Meteos, because of his level 3 route, there was an opportunity to go bottom, but it looked like he wasn't completely informed of wards or anything like that on the bottom side. Doesn't decide to take the risk and instead goes for the kind of the standard play there and just the easy, safe route.
More farming it out. Not like the beginning Meteos. The early Meteos of old, we remember slingshotting himself in from the sides on Zac, trying to gank it every efficient kind of point possible.
I also remember heavy farm and amazing KDA back in the day.
He's still got the amazing
farming
KDA.
champions. Yeah.
Meteos still has the amazing KDA, but his CS differential or CS per minute isn't as extreme as it used to be. His ward stats are definitely up though, which will make it interesting to see if he goes with the Sightstone, which was the Rek'Sai strategy earlier on in the split, or if he goes with Tiamat, which seems dominant right now. Good blue handoff.
Gonna be very nice for Jensen. Ninja will not get the same treatment as of right now, but Proxen's gonna try to use those buffs for good here in the top lane. Impact sitting in a nice minion wave.
Seraph has a W charged up.
Body slam may not work. Electric Surge goes in. They do get Impact on a hit, but he's able to hop out. Do they go into the turret? And the final attack is not a passive one from Seraph. He doesn't get the Thunder Shuriken in.
Yeah, they layered the CC there a little bit too hard. Proxen went for the Body Slam Flash. Maybe could have walked up, gotten the slow, and then gone for the Body Slam Flash afterwards. But still, layered those double stuns.
Got the flash.
Get the flash, though.
And one of Impact's flaws earlier in the season was a little bit too much greed in lane. This time he gets out of it, but now without his flash and without his teleport, he's going to have to play very passive and most likely give Seraph a bit of a lead in the lane. Let's see if he's willing to do that, knowing that at least his mid laner in Jensen is doing well, and overall the team will be okay. Impact, though, does like to greed to try and stay in the game.
Could happen. I mean, he could pull off a pretty good Gnar move. Can never put it by this guy out in the top lane. A previous world champion still has a bit of those under his feathers to use.
So he had to use his teleport to get back. Seraph decides to trek it out with Kennen. You actually get a little bit of a leeway here with the Lightning Rush to continue running back. I love that he's maxing the W first. It gives him a lot of wave clear. A lot of people will max the Q, and it's kind of a trap because you have to land the Q to actually do the damage. The W, increase your auto attack trading in lane, and then you also get the wave clear a lot earlier than you normally would and get that break point.
It's a nice cooldown as well on W. You can almost use it twice before storm marks start to wear off.
Once you get some CDR, which is now in Kennen's build. It wasn't previously, but Abyssal Scepter, Zhonya's Hourglass, Proto Belt all have CDR, which he didn't have access to before.
Good to see him back. I like it. Still has that teleport ready. Remember, 6 is a big thing we're keeping an eye on here. The bot lane's a little too low for that, while mid is actually hitting that number right now, so we may see some action in that part of the map. But as of these standard lanes, things seem to be going slow. It doesn't look like anybody wants to put themselves in a dangerous position. That's why Meteos is warding up, doing everything very methodically.
Already gets some decent wards in the jungle of Envy. Has a pink ward that he can place later, as well as securing the Grump. So he's really trying to take control of that bottom side, but it is also going to be not having control of the top side. So maybe Proxen decides to go for a repeat gank, and if that happens, Meteos will need to make that control on the bottom side count.
Exactly, and it is a flashless Gnar. It is an Kennen with ultimate and flash. Gonna chase him down.
Oh, he gets out!
Oh, he doesn't go for it.
Oh!
Wow.
Then Proxen smacks a minion. So failed gank there.
I'm very surprised that Seraph decided not to blow his flash there. You can actually cancel the animation of your ultimate if you ulti flash.
I'm very interested as to why he didn't blow it as well. Moving on though, Seraph and Proxen move out of that kind of without getting anything. Gonna see the revolver first buy for him. So Impact did catch up on CS. Now he's avoided 2 ganks. Where's the extra pressure go? A good fight in mid lane. Glacial Tomb going on to Ninja. He heals himself back up a bit, and Smoothie's gonna chomp him up to safety.
Whoops.
I was gonna say whoops.
Yeah.
But they're safe. They're good to go.
They get that teleport too, and that was one of the advantages that NV had. They had teleport and flash advantage top lane. They don't make use of the flash advantage, and they actually squander their teleport advantage, which could have been a bot lane play. You see that ward behind Sneaky right now. Could have been a great one.
Yeah, and this actually opens them up a little bit towards being vulnerable in the bot lane. Ashe being level 6 can trigger a gank pretty easily. Impact will have teleport up before Seraph does, and Ninjas will also be on cooldown when Impact is up. Not to mention that Jensen is usually being able to push in Ninja, so if there is a place that we're going to see First Blood, the most likely thing would be bottom lane on either Laud or Hakuho.
It looks like it. The wards are getting placed in 2 pings, one in front of and behind blue, right where the mid banana brush is. It looks like it says, let's get a turret, maybe a kill, and dragon after that. It's 8 minutes in. It looks like Meteos is starting to put a little pressure mid here to see if they can catch Ninja off guard.
Yeah, Cinder Hulk start for him. Looks like he's going to rush the whole thing with the Bomby Cinder. No Tiamat start. May go for the Sightstone. They're both boring.
I don't like it.
Build.
I like the Tiamat build. I think it's superior. You farm so quickly, especially with all the counter jungling he's trying to do. But he has a little bit of extra health, and can they steal the blue? Nice.
Oh! Well done. Well done. Woo! Smites it right before Jensen throws it over. Great communication there, and great actually getting that buff to Jensen.
Yeah. Gone are the days that Meteos is not willing to give over a blue buff. Now he's smiting it to secure it for his mid laner.
Things change. It's like Froggen said when I asked him the question, when you plateau, how do you get better? And he's like, sometimes you got to give things up to get better for
Streaming
other people.
changed.
Also, he's on Rek'Sai, so I feel like that helps a little bit too. When he
You got a good point. You got a good point.
Yeah.
Coming up on 10 minutes here, not really much of a lead for Cloud9. Envy, I think the standard lane is kind of helping them here to not really put themselves in any bad spots, allow them like kind of just textbook strategics to happen here in the first few minutes of the game. It's when Cloud9, I think, and we even saw in Europe and other regions, when they do start to decide to swap maybe after a 78-minute mark, where you can start to throw the game off.
I feel like both actually want to stay in standard lanes, though.
Right.
I feel like the bottom lane feels like they have pick potential. I think Envy also feel like if they can catch the Ashe out, then they have a good chance too. But speaking of catching, Proxen.
Nice cleanse. One after the other. Quick scatter is going to save Jensen there as the arrow comes flying.
Oh, but bottom lane.
Friendly arrow. Yeah, there's a Rek'Sai in the top lane, so that's not where it's happening. Basically, it looked like Envy was trying to get aggressive when the arrow got shot through the mid lane. But that's why Jensen brings cleanse, and that's why he has Magic Resistar ready to try and lower the threat of such ganks.
I'm seeing actually really reserved play here from Proxen. Body Slam Flash at the start was a little over-aggressive, and now this.
Not a level on Meteos, but
still has to run.
Small things like this could easily sway the game in a direction that you want. Now that's Meteos having knowledge. He can kind of dip set wherever he wants to on the map. Make something happen, especially with that Void Rush up. He may just choose to keep farming. They're going to actually give Jensen the blue and keep that strength in mid lane still.
Perma blue buff for Jensen.
Yeah.
He is just trying to get
All
supercharged up against Ninja's Lysandra. He does have a minor CS advantage, but it's not a giant CS advantage that you might hope that Jensen would be able to pull off against Ninja. So I would actually have to credit Ninja for this lane based on the fact that Jensen has just been fed blues. He got a blue at 4 minutes. He got Ninja's blue at 7 minutes. He's got his blue back again at 10 minutes. Like, this is a lot of stuff that Ninja has to deal with, and he's only down a dozen CS.
Also bringing a matchup. I mean, this kind of goes for both of them, however much Jensen plays against Lysandra, but when's the last time Ninja's really played against a mechanically well-prowessed Syndra, right? Jensen's going to be able to throw that damage in there, kind of get a few tricks of the trade in that he's learned over the past week of practicing that.
Yeah, it's always different, too, when you play against somebody who's playing it solo queue versus playing it competitive.
Yep.
They're always going to play sometimes a little bit more reserved than you think, and they're going to just wait for those perfect opportunities instead of jump at every one of them.
Yeah. The Proto Belt finished up for Seraph.
And I also like that Ninja's going for the Abyssal Scepter to help out the Kennen in the top lane.
That's true. They're going to synergize once these fights get together. They have Lod to get everybody into that fight as well. That's going to be great for Kennen's or Seraph's speed once he actually has to initiate.
Yeah, if we look at these teams, because of the two big AoE ultimates that Envy has and the Sivir, they might have better team fighting. C9's going to have to be able to find the picks.
This could be one. Bounces him back. There's the W. Follow-up. Meteos should go down here, but he's able to flash out. Jensen providing enough cover for the team. Seraph very close to being able to flash Maelstrom into this fight, but he decides not to.
Yeah, they end up getting the flash from Meteos, and they get the teleport from Impact. So once again, Envy now have Summoner Spell advantage in that top lane. And still Body Slam Flash available to them.
Our first blood probability predictor is now changed.
Yeah.
There's 2 teleports on the board for Envy and a flash on Gragas, so really wherever they would want a double teleport. Now it's just one.
What?
Ninja wants the CS. CS teleport right there.
I feel like it wasn't going to miss much either because Jensen's just hanging back too.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, Jensen hadn't recalled, so now he's got to stick around.
He's actually probably going, why did he TP? That's so weird. Seems like a play you would only do if you had some pressure around you.
Yeah, if Envy could get a ward in the bottom lane that isn't swept out, that's one nice thing that the supports are already on Sweeper because they know the potential for teleports coming in. But either Lysandra or a Kennen teleporting in behind Ashe and Tahm Kench would probably be a kill.
Both supports, I believe, are out of wards right now. So even with that recall that's coming through, I don't think Hakuho even has one to throw down.
It is pretty interesting looking at how Seraph and Ninja both will work against the Kench, pretty much freeze him in place, and it doesn't matter if he eats up Sneaky. He kind of loses out in that situation anyways. Mountain Drake, I should say, still hasn't really been anybody's plate just yet.
They want Jensen!
And it might just happen. There's the hit, back and forth. Jensen cannot even move from that crowd control.
Yeah, had cleanse, had flash, but still, it's too fast to actually react to that. And they knew that Seraph had actually roamed because of that ward in the Tri-Brush top. So Jensen, even at his turret, still got dove, wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, a lot of that credit goes to Proxen, but then also the fact that Seraph had been able to get enough pressure in the top lane to make the roam mid lane. Like, that's not really a kill you can expect Jensen to avoid unless he was actually just foregoing all CS at his turret.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is the Gragas snuck in. They were pinging him, actually. They said, I think he's here, but Meteos couldn't make it in time to defend the gank, and Jensen is gone before Meteos can react.
Now you know when Ninja teleported. No, I'm just kidding.
It all makes sense.
It's all coming together.
It's like watching Memento the second time.
Full circle.
Or fourth time.
The Dragon does go over to Cloud9 after Envy back to spend their spoils of war on Jensen's first blood. So Cloud9 come out okay on that. Jensen's still going to be all right in the mid lane, and now warding up a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, a big fear will be Seraph and whether or not he can snowball now. His Proto Belt's complete, he's got a lot of magic penetration. There's a little bit of magic resist on Impact Gnar, but the potential teleport plays and the Kennen team fighting is scary for a relatively low mobility damage-dealing core that C9 has with Sneaky and Jensen. Having to deal with Lysandra, Sivir, and Kennen is going to be tough, especially since we're 15 minutes in, and C9 hasn't generated any picks.
Yeah, and I feel like this is one of Envy's biggest strengths is backline disruption from their top laner and their mid laner. They've always played that dive style, and they've always wanted to get there, but look at this.
This is actually really big. It's a hugely underrated amount of gold. Watch this. They give all the local gold to 60. 650 gold? Seraph got 400 for first blood. The first turret gold, not to mention the local gold that the other turret already gives.
Right.
It's over 1,000 gold for the team, but 650 individually for Sneaky. That's actually huge.
Yeah. Basically picks up another kill on what he would have previously on actually taking down a turret, which was 400 gold before.
He had 1,000. Now he's got 680 after that and a few farms, so he's going to be completing his items quite quickly when he goes back. Cloud9 likes to sit on a bit of gold, though. They play that safe enough, so it's a situation they can play around. Bot lane will, however, get that money spent. We'll see what they come to the table with. Impact has started that Frozen Mallet in the top lane, so Seraph can't get too far ahead. He's hoping to slow that snowball down.
Ooh, Proxen's actually trying to sneak to the top side, get some vision of Meteos, give some cover to Seraph.
They know where the power has to
arrow down
focused.
the mid.
Yep. That is everyone's feeling when that arrow happens. Except for Ninja. He's
Not
pretty
Ninja.
happy.
It's like, it's a different type of side.
Very tough one to try. Also with blue buff, Jensen probably take down Ninja in that situation if he wouldn't just kind of Glacial Tomb him and walk out of it because he still have the cleanse. So whether he's killed, he's pushed out of lane, even if he does not die. Oh, you can see C9 trying to do little things. Even if he's not dead, we still get lane control. We can push up. Their wards have died out on the side of Envy, so they're a little bit hesitant now just to farm the lanes.
Yeah, Fox actually just walks through mid and gives himself up there. I'm trying to see what he gets out of it, because giving away your position as a jungler leaves your lanes open to pressure.
Woo!
Yeah.
Once Gnar gets a Frozen Mallet, he becomes a whole different beast in lane. Gets you substantially more hyper procs and increases your accuracy. Here we go, TK.
Abyssal Voyage, one more hit. Oh, he throws Sneaky out for the boop shot, and he boops him.
You get so little time to actually react to the Tahm Kench ultimate. I believe it's like 0.5 seconds of actual warning to your opponent before you start coming through. And Ninja's is not expecting it, blows his flash as well.
And that was opened up because C9 was killing the turret in the bottom side, and actually they're getting a bit more pressure. The Frozen Mallet for Impact. Oh,
he didn't pull aggro.
What? Seraph was trying to avoid getting dove. He was hoping to ult as Impact was auto-attacking him, but Impact was able to hold off, and it's the discipline that burns the Cannon ultimate. That also diminishes Envy's team fighting potential. Proxen, though, wants a game.
That also seemed like a very nervous way. You don't rush like that before you ultimate. You're missing a mark.
And it's a free man.
Seraph kind of misplaying that one. Proxen, however, they're going to make up for this here. Impact, he's actually going goal side to Envy's base.
He's trying to buy time.
Be able to make it for quite a bit here.
Because they're going to get mid.
He is going to be able to jump over wall at some point if he finds Hakuo or just runs it out. You're right, Zyrene, as well. Mid is going to go down, and Impact is giving himself up. So Cloud9, oh, he's still going because of Mega Gnar. It is a field day for C9 in the mid lane now, and #Worth is written all over that.
That's it. He gets the death, but all 5 people on Envy spend 20 seconds chasing through. Not worth the mid lane turret whatsoever.
Cue the music.
That's the top lane dream when you're getting camped. Stall him out. Perfect play there from Impact to actually burn his flash really early on to avoid the barrel back. And just, honestly, very beautifully done.
Yeah, and on top of it, Seraph didn't even get an assist. Like, his lane opponent didn't gain anything from this aside from being able to clear the wave. You see the start of it, they teleport in, they throw Gragas in, he hops over Seraph and then slows him with the Frozen Mallet, so he's gone. Proxen actually has to flash. Smart flash to not get hit by the slow. It's all about avoiding anything that can tag you for diminished movement speed. And then also, because he's landing a few skill shots on the backside and taking a bit of damage, his Gnar bar goes up, so the final kill, he transforms, gains the bonus health, meaning they have to spend extra time to finish him off after that. And guess what? The mid turret pays the price.
I wondered when the split was going to be. We had standard lanes for a while. Who was really going to attempt the first thing? And they kind of looked before they leaped on that, and Envy leaped a little too far.
Yeah.
31.9 is a bit of a lead for Cloud9, but the way they got it with the turrets being down, I think, is going to mean a lot more.
Oh, arrow onto Ninja.
Lost.
Well, the picks are beginning. The arrow actually landed, but even if it didn't, the Tahm Kench coming in after they fire the arrow, pretty awesome combo actually, and this could actually be the inner turret in the mid lane going down as well.
When Tahm Kench was meta before, we did not see a lot of Abyssal Voyages come through, and ever since the change, now people have actually been utilizing that ultimate. The complaint before was he's so powerful even without using it. Well, now he's using it, and you're seeing the power of this Tahm Kench when he's actually a global support that assists people.
So you're saying more complaints?
Yeah.
No,
I'm just saying, like, he's nerfed in other ways. Don't worry, he doesn't get health back from his gray health.
Well, he's definitely still something you got to look at in picks and bans now. I'm sure he'll be recognized coming into Game 2 here, the first of the quarterfinals. You know, right now, Cloud9 is ready to do with the outer, or do away with the outer horn of turrets, and the third one will go down as Impact tries to get this wave reset.
Yeah, and a lot of Cloud9's success is tied to their ability to pressure the map right here. Since Envy is the double teleport team with 2 awesome teamfight mage ultimates, Envy wants to control the game and have the right pacing. But C9 is consistently getting picks and forcing ultimates and flashes out of Envy when Envy doesn't want to use them, which is preventing Envy from finding a cohesive team fight. As long as C9 keep up pressure, they're in good shape. They may actually give up the Cloud Drake just because that's when Envy was actually grouped with all their ultimates available.
They may pick it up here, but Impact is getting damage on the top side. And now Seraph had to go mid to actually defend it because they could just rotate from mid to top and get another turret here. Kind of had to tag him out.
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit dangerous having to give over the Cloud Drake, though, especially when C9 is so skill shot reliant for their picks, whereas now Envy, if they're out of combat, will have that extra 25 movement speed, That's that fraction of a second to maybe get out of the way of the Ash Arrow, or maybe give them a chance against an Abyssal Voyage.
Yeah, they're as well built on engage. So once they get a nice chance, they may be able to throw Lod's ult on and Seraph in as well. A lot of options. But like we said, when you use all those ults, when you're chasing down somebody just to get one, there's no value out of it because the next fight, you are sitting on a lot of cooldown. Seeing the items come in now. Impact finishing up a Banshee's Veil so he can be even more of a nuisance. That was CS down by at least 10 at one point in the lane, and the way that Cloud9's been able to play around the map has just pulled Seraph out of lane, and Impact has a clear lead now.
And the global pressure from Seraph with the teleport, both top laners actually haven't gotten too much out of their usage.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is just because they're not set up properly and the communication is not actually seeming on point, especially for Envy here, because they've had a lot of opportunities that they haven't jumped at, and it's been a problem for them the entire split.
Yeah, and I also feel like C9 is playing a fairly slow style, which they've been good at throughout most of the split. That's one of the underestimated things about C9. They have some of the lowest death totals in the LCS and one of the best kill-to-death ratios, and you can see their vision control style is trying to prevent Envy from getting picks. 2 Ruby Sight Stones completed 22 minutes in the game is very rare, especially since so many of the Rek'Sais haven't gone Tiamat. Meteos not actually trying to outform Proxen, but he is trying to outpressure him and control the map, and it's all about getting picks for Cloud9 and avoiding initiations from Envy. But Seraph's trying from the side.
There we go, blank from Seraph.
Slicing Maelstrom, he flashes in on 3. A 4th is going to enter. Jensen gets out on the side, and he may be able to deliver damage back. Meteos is trying to get to Lod, but he's been pinned against the wall. The belt comes out, and they're trying to dash away. They finally are able to take down Sneaky and Smoothie, and they can turn and focus on the rest of the members of Cloud9. Envy had all those cooldowns back up they were waiting for, and they made it count that time.
Caster Curse. They had no control when they tried to push up. They get initiated on. Envy actually did what we talked about, though. They found a way to group up as 5 without having a pressure pocket somewhere else on the map, and they did an initiation with all of their ultimates.
Still there.
Perfect actual position there for Seraph because he had access to both of the carries, both Jensen and Sneaky. The return damage was not present. They were able to pick up Sneaky very quickly, and then Jensen had to kind of run for the hills after this because it's just such a great position, and they were not expecting that, and they were funneled into this choke point with a cannon. It's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, they not really sure why they were pushed up in that specific point since they've already killed both inner turrets.
Right.
But you can see the actual fight. Envy is basically just all grouped up since they were able to kill the carries right at the start. Nothing to really get them away from being grouped up. Like, C9 doesn't have very many AoE threats. Like we said, they're all about trying to get a few kills really before fights start.
It seemed just like a lapse in judgment. They had, like you said, 2 Ruby Sight Stones and no shoulder wards when they were even approaching a lane with no turrets in it. So it's kind of like, we have a lead, so let's kind of hang around in mid. Like, you gotta activate on that lead. Unfortunately, they were acted upon by Envy.
And if Cloud9 are looking for team fights, then it's not necessarily the right choice against this Envy composition. You have to pick before the fights, like Jat was saying, where you want to have it be a numbers advantage in your favor because you already just took somebody off the map. It doesn't really matter which carry it is either. Like, everybody, you really just want to kill one person on Envy and then start the fight off.
There we go, back into the jungle.
Get that blue impact.
Oh, he even uses the ultimate for it. That's how much they're trying to deny Ninja all game long. No blue buffs for this guy. He's gotten about 1 or 2.
Change his name to Blueless. Should be a name for this one. You alter your name per game because that's got to be hard, especially when he's expected to clear just as well as Seraph is in the top lane when he can get to it. It's making it hard for Envy to even control some of these lanes. Impact now to the bottom, so somebody's going to have to be there to respect that as well, and they are just running Envy thin here with a smaller amount of numbers, really.
Yeah, they have to make sure they're keeping spread out. Impact has gone for a lot of early magic resist in his build, which makes the kill threat from Seraph or Ninja almost non-existent when he's in a side lane. So as long as Impact is here, Envy can't pull off those initiations.
Looks like they're going to try to trade that turret, though.
Well, they're going to get that top turret here, and Cloud9 are not in a position to really capitalize on this and get their turret of their own.
So you don't want the inhib turret, but they'd have to push really fast.
Yeah, and they're all in plain sight, too. The reaction from Envy would have to be incredibly slow.
It seemed like a mixed decision. There were pings on the turret, Meteos was going back and forth, and now Cloud9 almost in that same position we saw them in mid, but Envy is not able to get a gank on this one, as they just took down a turret. C9 now just going to go ahead and exit as they move around. This was really, I guess, for Impact to have that pressure top lane. Didn't get much out of floating around in the mid.
Definitely not, and they can't even get full control of the Baron area because the Scuttle Crab had already been completed by Envy. So I do have to credit Envy for kind of sticking around in this game and only having 4 deaths against what is such a lethal pick composition from C9. Because the team fighting down the stretch will obviously be interesting. There's a lot of magic resist that C9 can stack on their front line, which will make it difficult for Envy to deal damage.
Yeah.
It is also good for Laud that he has 2 of the kills, since that's going to be the thing that can push them over the top in the team fight. So even if C9's tanks can stack magic resist, there's not much you can do to deal with a full item Sivir.
Exactly, and the Sivir crits would just come through and do so much damage, but you can see Seraph is already trying to itemize against the stacking magic resistance. He's going for that Void Staff next, and Sneaky knows what he's up against. He gets an early Hex Drinker on Ashe, 3rd item here for himself, and everybody's pretty much prioritizing that now, getting some early magic resistance. Smoothie going for that Aegis as well. And he's just trying to keep Sneaky alive. If you can keep Sneaky and Jensen alive in these fights, you can win them. But you have to survive the initial burst.
C9 wants Baron. Baron actually doesn't have very good... C9 doesn't have great Baron damage. So they were threatening the Baron, and Envy actually pulls off Mountain Drake before even C9 started Baron.
Yeah. Actually a really good call here. They get that mid turret because Cloud9, that threat on the Baron was really a bluff. They had Impact trying to stop the Dragon, and Envy call it.
I think they saw the damage isn't there as well. You're working with a Syndra. Not much is going to come out of her in the mid lane, or a Tahm Kench. So see what they can continue to do as they pressure back and forth here. Envy looking to pick a fight.
C9 might try and initiate. Like, their split push game hasn't been giving them very many advantages. The goal lead is actually getting smaller and smaller for C9. And even though Envy have the team fight force, like, C9, they're looking a little bit impatient, and they're going to probably try and force something.
Looks like it might be the Drake here. Seraph backs, has teleport, would have the home guard. There's some wards on the bottom side to set him up. He's looking for a backline.
That was an unbreakable arrow, so a lot of the damage was blocked. Ninja's in a bad spot, but he can save himself. Half Zanya's out of that one with the ultimate. Meteos in the back line, but no pressure, so Cloud9 now has to yo-yo forward. And both teams looking at each other. 5v5 back off with a few members limping away.
Yeah, Smoothie hijacks Sneaky and gets him out of there. And then Ninja came in, and he didn't have a target that he really wanted to use his ultimate on, and that didn't set up Seraph because he wasn't able to use the Frozen Tomb.
Pretty impressive fight for Cloud9. If they're going to fight, they have to go more like that, where Jensen and Sneaky can stay far away from Ninja and Seraph. Seraph didn't even use his flash because he was never actually even in flash range, which is going to be tough against Lissandra and Kennen, who both have home guard teleports with proto belts. Very hard to stay safe.
Especially if you can't get the wards cleared. You see 2 full sweepers on the side of C9 trying to do that, as well as Meteos taking that Raptor buff at every point in time. It's coming down to a lot of vision now, especially with arrows on the side of C9 and Seraph with the potential to do engagements like we saw before. Envy's had a few walk-up engagements in this game, and that could really be the way to get back into it with a Sivir Kennen composition. Ninja to lane clear priority now. It looks like Seraph will try to do the same in the top lane if it ever comes back his way.
Yeah.
See if Cloud9 can make anything of this here. This is where they seem to kind of waffle a bit before they choose what to do.
Yeah, Cloud9, though, they don't really have a great Baron composition, but they have 2 Mountain Drakes now.
They did get that
definitely
second
gives
one.
them a big boost now in actually threatening to take the Baron if Envy are in a mispositioned side, and they can bait the Baron a little bit, but baiting a teamfight composition can be risky, but it is great for a pick comp. You can get some kills out of it if you're C9.
It's actually pretty interesting with Envy having the Cloud Drake and C9 having the Mountain Drakes, because both of these things will create push-pull threat around objectives. Envy will be able to respond to Baron or turret pushes faster, but C9 will be able to take those things faster as well. So in a sense, they're helping to cancel each other out in power.
I also found it interesting, we talked about it a little bit ago, but the choice of magic resistance, kind of not selfish, but Banshee's Veils on the side of Cloud9. Well, you're looking at Jensen is against 2 lockets now that the money has been into for Envy. So we're really putting a lot in that area in their items. Shields may help, though, save you from Jensen's ultimate. Ooh, it is something that could pop Envy off this map very fast, as still toe-to-toe.
Oh, they hit Seraph.
It's going to be Seraph that gets it. Cannot even. Zanya's to keep himself alive, and it looks like Impact right in the middle of the fight. Hakuo throws his Glacial Fissure backwards, but the team's able to get past it. Smoothie's low, Meteo's low, Lod on the back with ricochets as Ninja tries to lock the entire team down with his ultimate, but Proxen trying to keep Impact off of Lod, pushing forward. Ninja Zanya's in the face of just about 1,000 combined HP, and he can't clear it out. That's gonna be Proxen going down, and Jensen walk Envy out of the fight.
Nobody on C9 dies, and they get 4 kills in a team fight, but the key thing there is they really won the fight before it started.
Exactly.
Seraph got nothing done. It was all about the initiation. It was a team fight pick, so to speak, and C9 get the Baron after.
That's exactly what they want. They get it so quickly at the Mountain Drake, no threat on there, and picking Seraph, exactly the person you want. They put the arrow through, they double down with the CC from the Rek'Sai, and Impact was ready to leap in and gets an enormous Gnar.
Yeah, the timing of the initiation was amazing as well because of that Gnar. Also got a shout out to Jensen for bodying. Yeah, he bodied the body slam with his Syndra play right there. Impact, frontline beats the whole fight. And then Ninja, while he did do a lot of damage in this fight, was never able to apply fatal damage.
And this is where a Slicing Maelstrom just kills the entire team. If that had actually started the fight off, it's a very different looking fight for Envy and even C9. Like, they're walking away with 4 people with flashing health bars.
The hope is that you can kind of explode as Envy were trying to and dodge that arrow. If that arrow had missed, that's Envy's fight, right? That's Kennen right in the middle.
Yeah, Sneaky took that opportunity because Seraph had put himself between the dead turret and the wall, so he has no escape route there.
Yeah, and a fight for Envy could still happen, right?
That's
like,
true.
they still have flashes, or they will have both flashes available for both of their AP initiators, both proto belts available, and Jensen is actually without flash, so there's even a little bit less mobility on the side of C9. This push from C9 is going to be very dangerous. They should be very trepid as they approach.
Yeah, they can still actually counter in the fights a little bit here. Smoothie has that exhaust. If you can get it on Seraph before Azonia's, if you can actually catch Sneaky and put him in his mouth, then there's some great ways here that Cloud9 can turn him around, and with a gold advantage and the Baron in their favor, it's not completely catastrophic if the fight starts now, and especially with the Locket finally picked up.
Ninja looking for that engage from the side. Looks like Sneaky's going to be on push mid duty. Top lane should be there in a little bit. They have a second tier turret if they want to work on that, and it looks like they may do a cross map switch here to make sure it's all safe so they can take that last outer turret.
Yeah, and also notice the... Oh, here comes an arrow. They hit Proxen.
He gets scattered. He's going to get taken down. There's too much CC after that pick. Walking into the jungle just to try to get wards is not an option right now for Envy, and Cloud9 is taking control here as they go from coast to coast.
Yeah, that's actually really critical because that lowers Envy's initiation potential. Plus, they still have Baron Minions on the other side, so they're going to be able to get 1, maybe 2 if they decide to get aggressive.
Oh, Mountain Drake.
Yeah, still some decent wave clear as well, though. With the Sivir and having the Lissandra for Envy, they do have some opportunities to clear these out, but they have to put themselves at risk pretty heavily.
Will Envy be willing to fight 4v5? I think that's the only way they stop him here.
I think you're almost forced to fight. They throw the on the hunt on. It's not even going to deter Cloud9. They said, great shout, sounded nice. We're still going to take your turret. Meteos on Lot. He gets crushed. It's going to be the hits from Sneaky. Seraph to the backline. It's what he's been trying to do all game. He gets it, but there's almost no follow-up for the team. Instantly taken down by Jensen as he comes out of the Zanyas. And Envy does save the inhibitor, but they lose that turret.
Yeah, it's a 2 for 2. They took the 4v5 fight, and Seraph finally found a way to get to that backline, using everything to get to Sneaky and picking him up. Even with an exhaust on him, he still picks him up, and that actually relieves a lot of pressure for Envy. And they were just waiting for Impact. They're waiting for Impact because he has that Mega Gnar, and then it actually goes off. He can't follow the initiation up, and Meteos dives in, but then Seraph goes in, and Jensen's the one who gets picked by Smoothie to actually survive.
Yeah, so Smoothie can only save 1 if they both get caught in the Kennen ult.
Who's your favorite?
Yeah, Jensen, apparently.
I mean, Jensen
trust issues in the bottom lane.
Jensen is funneled most of the gold for Cloud9 in the later parts of the game.
Yeah.
So keeping him alive is very critical.
That's what I wanted to talk about as well, is the farm distribution of both of these teams. When C9 has been grouped up, it's been Jensen who's been getting the CS. Whereas when Envy is grouped up, it's been Laud who gets most CS. He has nearly 100 CS advantage over Sneaky. I think that could be a very conscious choice by Envy. When you look at how C9 is stacking so much magic resistance across almost every position, with the Maw even being completed onto Sneaky, the way Envy gets past that is to give all the gold to their physical damage dealer.
Yep. Right.
But for that to work, Laud has to stay alive and be present in these team fights because he has not been dealing very much damage in a lot of these, and he got picked off at the very start of that last one.
It's definitely a little bit harder when you don't have a front liner, like a big tank in front of you, because he's getting dove by Anar pretty much every time. The Rek'Sai hasn't been peeling the backline. They're pretty much leaving Smoothie just to peel for Sneaky and Jensen. So there is a decent amount of threat on Laud. And so far he's playing it all right, but another behind the turret.
Can they CC chain? Nope.
Choice by Hakuo.
Yeah.
But you're right. He always looks for that. You're guaranteed a shot, or even more so if somebody's standing against the wall because they only have one place to run. It's away from the wall or straight along with it.
Gotta stop doing that.
So Sneaky always fires at the wall. Why not? It's a great shot.
Yeah. C9 has a decent position to try and end here as well. They have double GA on their front line, and if they get a pick on Envy in the base, they could look to get a near insurmountable lead. They want to get 1 or 2 inhibitors down, but maybe they're just getting vision control for the Baron that's going to be up in a minute 40. They obviously still have to respect the initiation of the double proto belt, and very soon, when Laud completes his Bloodthirster, it will be a little insane.
Laud, I'm gonna say, he definitely talked himself up at the beginning of the year. It's a good attribute to know what your skills are, and he has shown to be a bright spot in some of the games here for the team, as Lucian was always very good. The Sivir isn't exactly the ultimate carry, but in the end game, those ricochets definitely put your team in a damn good spot in these fights. And Laud is somebody that can actually do that for the team.
She's one of the best 6-item team fight 80 carries if you can actually get to that point and be in range. That's the big caveat, is her range is her crutch there.
It's going to be tough. He's going up against Guardian Angels now, as well as Sneaky has that almost in Smoothie. He's the one he chooses next time if Sneaky gets that priority to be saved. And right now, he's got a little help from Smoothie there. But Laud, like you guys said, has his work cut out for him. Hakuo is usually ulting and running to try and peel, where Seraph's in, Proxen's in the fight, Ninja's in. So like you said, this bot lane has to be very close in communication because it seems like the other three kind of do their own thing.
Yeah, I actually like Smoothie building the QSS right here. It guarantees that he will be able to devour a teammate even if he's getting locked in by CC. Be one thing that could keep Jensen a little bit safer, or Sneaky a little bit safer. Jensen also hitting 6 items already, so very high priority to keep alive.
Yeah, he also got himself the Rylai's Crystal Scepter to have a little bit more HP in the bank, make sure that he can actually survive the Kennen ultimate. A little bit easier without too much assistance, but the QSS is actually something we've been seeing more and more on Tahm Kench's. It's been very popular. I mean, it used to be people would buy the Merc Treads to get out of the CC earlier, and it's just like, oh, I can get out of it instantly. Let's do that. Does take up a support item slot, so your build gets slowed down quite a bit, but you're a support. Your build's going to be slow pretty much anyway.
Yep. He's all right with it.
But speaking of getting out of CC, the Mikhail's Crucible for Hakuo will save Seraph from an Ash Arrow if it comes through.
They got to be on point in that initiation. Those two usually aren't near each other with what we've seen Envy initiating, so it definitely changes the style of initiation as well, that they have to be closer and more grouped up. Cloud9 just showing full control, and they have been for the past 5-6 minutes in this game. They were even able to take that second Cloud Drake 3 for themselves now, as we're going to be seeing that Elder Dragon be our next spawn. Looking to work off that top, pushing in. It looks like mid, or rather bottom, is going to be pushing out for them, so they look to work mid and top here.
Looks like Baron as well with those 2 Mountain Drakes. Mountain Drake. They have vision though. TP from Seraph. Or it's actually Ninja.
It's a fight.
Mid top of the fancy Baron bait. Rocks it in on impact. He's gonna go Tiny Gnar. It's actually Mega Gnar eaten up, but it'll be Tiny Gnar very soon. Seraph's getting kind of worse for the wear here. Hakuo goes down with the ult coming in from Jensen. Smoothie's very low. Pops his shield, stays alive. Slicing Maelstrom continues through the Zhonya's, and Seraph looks for the backline. Ninja makes it to the backline and takes down Jensen. And Sneaky was open for just a moment. That's all he needed for a kill, but then turned again on by Ninja. And Meteos is forced to run scared in the fight as Envy gets the composition of fight they want.
And here they come. They were down in gold, but this can pop them right back into the game. Seraph and Ninja were so patient during that fight, and now Meteos would be tasked with the Desperation Steal. Maybe he can stop him. It's only 3 people on Envy trying to take the Baron. Let's see what Meteos can do.
He did alert them with that Prey Seeker so they could stop damage and try to kill him. He doesn't even attempt to go in. His GA is actually, would be down, have to come back up, so maybe they're saving it for the fight.
Yeah, I don't think he had vision to actually get in there through the Prey Seeker. But then, oh, it's just a big guess.
Right.
This is exactly what Envy want. This looks like a fight at the start where they're separated. Jensen was off on the left side. Jensen hasn't thrown a spell out just yet. He's going back and forth, and Impact has already taken more than half his HP. And then Jensen uses his ultimate onto Hakuo because it's the target nearby. That's exactly what they want. Exhaust comes down onto Seraph. He gets backline access. Seraph and Ninja need to kill the backline. They kill the carries, and Laud needs to kill the members with GA, and he's doing exactly that.
And what's going to be really tricky for C9 if they are unable to avoid fights like that in the future is that was eating the Cannon ult through exhaust, and they still died.
Yeah.
So if they don't get an exhaust cleanly off onto Seraph and Ninja's able to follow up in the same fashion, especially if Ninja's able to complete that death cap, those become super fake. Knowing that Jensen is already maxed out on items, knowing that Sneaky only has 1 more slot, probably going to have to go with the Scimitar, which is not going to maximize his damage the way he would like because it would be a build without an Infinity Edge. And it's really anyone's game, Riv.
Also, kudos to Hakuo for the fast fingers on the Mikhails there. Laud was hit with Scatter, then an arrow, then he had to heal Flash out. And had he died, they probably would have not come out on top of that. And that's one of the craziest things in this game that leads into, is with the items built, you have to start choosing new ways to engage. There's Banshie's Veils. You can't go for the Guardian Angel guy anymore. You have to be more creative, and these teams are being pushed to the limit here in game 1.
Exactly, because C9, normally your battle plan is kill Laud.
Is it shoot the guy with the shield? It might just be. They go for Hakuo. Impact throwing back a few. Meteos not able to get a true pop-up, and Impact throws himself too far in. Laud is able to take him down, and Seraph moves forward with the Slicing Maelstrom. Keeps himself alive to analyze the fight with Zanya's a few more seconds, and the team is battling over the wall back and forth. Meteos and the team getting popped up by the belly slam of Proxen, but it doesn't seem like any more kills will come through. Ninja does not take the claw, but it is respected as Cloud9 backs off.
Yeah, Impact couldn't get the clean initiation, and Laud was standing strong in that fight to get a lot of kills. Envy's looking to chase. C9 is very injured.
Not afraid to bite off more than they can chew. The Baron wave, it's coming right behind him. Why not keep going?
Meteos.
Oh, man.
He's looking for, I don't know what he's looking for. Getting a flank would be very ambitious.
Yeah. Seems like these fights have been happening so fast that Meteos is left, almost turning left and right, looking for the next target to peel or help.
Yeah, he's full tank Rek'Sai as well, so even if he gets onto Laud, at this point, he's actually just a teddy bear that can be life stolen off of. Like, he has no kill threat on Laud whatsoever.
Ninja got hit with an arrow. He's gonna go through.
Oh, the fade away hook. Claw.
Yeah. In that previous fight, though, Ninja got a fantastic claw to get out. Impact had used his Gnar to throw him towards his team, and it still had that timer on him to be taking that actual E to get out.
I agree. Sneaky's also sitting on 2,000 gold, so...
They love to do that.
He goes back and gets a BF sword. He's all in on trying to kill people. That's... maybe he's been having issues getting through Hakuo and Proxen. I know one thing for sure is that Jensen would love to be able to unload his ultimate on a squishy, but he can't because he's either having to throw it at someone with the Zonias and doesn't want the balls to go to nothing, and doesn't want to get it, and then he never has access to Laud, so he's been killing Hakuo or Proxen.
Yeah, a lot of that is the pressure that Envy's backline, I guess, or their divers, are putting onto Cloud9's backline. They're putting so much pressure onto Jensen and Sneaky, and without like a huge front line to back them up and multiple damage dealers. Hold on,
this
though.
teleport's way in the back.
Dun, dun, dun. Where's he going with it? Where's he going? Who's he gonna get? Throws the claw over. Isn't gonna have an entry. Kind of locks down Meteos. Ninja's in a bad spot. Impact wants to build this bar. Impact is just throwing himself in the fray. That's going to be Ninja down. Maelstrom on the Meteos and Impact. They're going to drop. The Guardian Angels are there. So there's a second fight here. Cloud9 back to bat. And that's a double kill coming in for Jensen. Hakuo, Proxen, and Laud all forced to run for the hills.
Very questionable choice for Seraph to initiate after Ninja had already died. It was already a lost cause, but they suffer 2 casualties.
Oh, Meteos?
They picked Meteos, maybe.
Whoa, talking about questionable decisions. The boomerang hits true.
Oh, man.
That's exactly what they needed.
2 for 2.
Even.
They had to stay even, especially having the smite to be able to take the Elder Drake. Sneaky is still alive, though. Amazing that with such a disastrous start, Envy is still able to equalize that fight at the end of it.
Not that they need it, but that was a nice bit of gold. 12 assist shutdown for the team as well. First death for Meteos, and let's see it again.
Yeah, this was the big questionable thing for me here was Seraph doesn't have flash yet. He's like 20, 30 seconds away from having it, and they still choose to go for this engagement. And now they're in a choke point. Seraph gets pushed off to the side by Sneaky, and now he can't walk around. He has to go straight through the tanks, which is not what he wants to do. Proto Belt's in, but he still can't reach Jensen or Sneaky.
Yeah. And that's really what these fights are entirely about.
Nice block.
If Jensen and Sneaky are able to be closed on by the Kennen and the Lysandra, it's over. But this is an Elder Drake fight happening right now.
Only at 75%. Definitely time for C9 to sneak in here. Impact looking to just add a bit of damage.
Seraph has flash, but no ultimate. 5 seconds left on it.
Ooh, arrow misses. A lot of those initiations are down now, and that leaves Envy
There's
feeling
no
a
Meteos
bit
to smite
more
Meteos.
secure. This is going to be Elder. It's only
Here
onto
goes
the one
Seraph.
cloud, but that is going to be a good fight now. Scatter the weak back. Seraph doesn't get the slicing Maelstrom in. Very fast fingers from Jensen to save the team from what could have been a big initiation. Ninja's going to take it. That's the one they want to go for, though. Even with the failed ult, they still go for number 2. And Envy strikes well this time. They're going to be able to take down 2. Lod gets a double kill, a triple kill for Lod as they pick up more kills.
And with the minion wave in the mid side and a cannon, this could actually be game 1 going over to the 6th seed Envy.
We have 60 seconds on the clock. They said they were the underdog, and they know it coming in, so they don't let anything to chance here. And Envy take it to the late game, just as they do every time. Sometimes creating a danger zone for themselves, but this time pulling through in a great fashion. Possible with 30 seconds left on the clock that they can take down the Nexus turrets.
Their composition was completely fluid. They're going to try to kill Meteos, and that's going to be the game.
One more onto him. You are correct. The Nexus turret goes down. That's number 2. And game number 1 is going over to Envy for momentum in the quarterfinal series.
What a way to start this series. C9, hopefully for them not having flashbacks to the spring where they fell to the 6th seed, which was TSM at the time. They said this split was going to be different. And Envy, even though they were slumping towards the end of the regular season, ended at 8-10. They come together throughout the mid and late game. Love the fact that they gave so much farm to Laud in that game.
Incredible.
So he could hit his item breakpoints towards the end of the match and carry some of those late game team fights via damage with Seraph and Ninja doing the distract.
I just think it's such a great composition for them, too, that fits their style. They give farm to Laud. He's able to farm those side waves. And then they have the divers there with both Seraph and Ninja. And big problem for Envy during the season was their draft. Sometimes their drafts were like, oh, we have a Kog'Maw in a composition that can't protect him, and they had a composition that could protect someone, and then they picked Ezreal. Like, these compositions haven't made sense for them in the past, and this one was perfect.
I think the players were right coming in here. Seraph said it, a few others said it, that it's a completely different game that they're entering in here to come into the quarterfinals. A lot of things have changed. People have practiced different things, and we saw an abundance of that here in game 1.
Yeah, we saw 3 champions in this game that neither of these teams had picked during the regular season. The Tahm Kench, the Syndra, and the Kennen. And I actually think all of them were successful in their own right. It's just that C9, when they're able to pick people off, were never able to completely finish the game. They caught a few too many fights negatively, and Envy was able to outscale at the very end of it, but an incredibly close game, and I can't wait for the rest of the series.
I'm excited to get back into game 2. So with that game 1 complete, let's check in with the analysts for a deeper dive on that Team Envy victory.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Envy coming away with the first victory, but this was an exciting way to start our best of 5 here between our 3rd and 6th seed. We were saying that for most people, they're looking at this as a pretty lopsided matchup, but Envy coming out in game 1 and saying, we're going to put up a fight. We're not going to go down, at least without trying. But I want to hit Champ Select first because we had talked about at the beginning of the day how much of this series might be decided based on the mini meta of the series itself and the way that these teams adapt and draft within that meta. What are your thoughts here in game 1?
Well, what's interesting is I think that these teams play pretty different in terms of their champ pool. So I don't know if it'll evolve into this like we're both going after the same kind of picks, especially based off how game 1 went. I think Envy had the clear idea that they had a couple counter picks in their solo lanes, and Proxen tried to pressure those. The Kennen pick was one I was initially hesitant for because against Gnar, it's not like a smash your lane kind of counter pick. It has pressure and you win the lane, but it's not like destroy. And Prox went up there a couple times and used a lot of resources, but they didn't actually get anything out of it.
Right.
So I thought that wasn't going to be a good counter pick, but obviously by the end of the game we saw that Seraph on Kennen's actually pretty good.
We saw the usefulness of the AoE CC.
Well, to me, one of the things that stands out is before in the regular split, we saw Envy playing a more of a 5-man composition, lots of tanks, lots of frontline CC and damage, and now we see a very similar composition, but with a little bit more emphasis onto the laning phase. And while we might think, oh, they just had all the counter picks to the lane, I mean, just looking at it, the Kennen didn't really do that well in the laning phase. Lissandra is awful into Syndra.
Oh my God,
if it's a counter pick, this is it.
Right.
And then picking Braum into Tom Kent, again, not a good matchup for winning the lane flat out. Sivir, of course, a massive late game carry. So I was thinking maybe it's more of a just wombo combo composition and just try to deal with it because they do have a lot of tendencies to build a more full AP composition. But this time around, at least they stacked a lot of crowd control and gave all the farm to the right member, Lod. So the fact that he was so fed and Sneaky took a more of a getting destroyed role and no farm from his team, his itemization was unable to deal damage.
Which is interesting because we do see the Tom Kench pulled out here in North America. It's been rather meta in many other regions, and we've seen it in that both in the support and top roles, but in particular used to protect those main carries. And in this situation, we saw the Ashe not getting the farm to necessarily put out the damage in those late game fights and having to be forced into a weird itemization based on the team composition he's up against.
I think that just plays out to the way that Envy was playing. You have double teleports, and while I thought that their use of TPs was extremely lackluster, not using it on TP advantages and whatnot, they were allocating farm properly. You can play a 1-3-1. You have two relatively safe champions in Kennen and Lissandra in the side lanes. You put Sivir in the mid lane. Pressure there, lots of farm.
Now now let's take a look at some fights here. We had mentioned the fact that Envy being a little bit more pressure-oriented out of the jungle, both out-farming Meteos on the side of Proxim, but also out-pressuring in terms of ganks, right? We saw a couple ganks go up into the top lane, not necessarily get anything out of it. It's not until 13 minutes that we finally got that first blood in the mid lane when they transitioned the pressure. The game, though, didn't break open until about the 30-minute mark. We saw a very, very static game, very reminiscent of most best-of-5 game ones where the teams are really, sussing each other out. But this was the big fight that broke it open in favor of Cloud9.
Right, so the insta give to Kennen, you think it's a pretty free fight, and Envy actually has a chance to kite out here. We see them drop this all and get a lot of good damage, but Lod's gonna walk into melee range of impact here and just get chunked out super hard. I think if Envy played this fight a lot slower, they might have been okay. We see Jensen burn his ult on Hakuho, and then from there, they're just too low at this point to really fight. Ninja gets another good chunk of damage out, but Lod can't follow up. If he was healthier there for that part of the follow-up, maybe they can turn this fight a little bit, but they really should have been in retreat mode once the Kennen got
I'm
popped.
so glad you brought that up. Jensen blew his ult on Hakuho. For some reason, this happened so many times. Now, Syndra, her biggest strength is being able to just pop squishies instantly. She can just one-shot them with ultimate, nice and easy, and her weakness is killing tanks. So every time that you use your ultimate on a tank, it is not playing to the strength of the champion, and every time that happened, they lost fights.
Cloud9 on your screens now, maybe being plagued by images of last split's playoffs where they were once again the 3 seed up against the 6 seed, and they were unseated by TSM back in that split. Of course, here, we still got plenty more League of Legends to play, so now the question is adaptation out of, say, Coach Reaper. Before we get to adaptations moving into Game 2, let's look at how the rest of the game played out. Moving into our second replay, 40 minutes into the game. This is a 4-for-2 for Envy around the Baron.
There's two bad things here. First, his impact ults everyone away. There's no chance that his carries can follow up, and he doesn't even get good stuns or damage. So he's basically no longer a threat. They kind of go on Lod, he kites it out, and then once again, you see the Jensen ult onto the Braum. It's great that you kill him, but look at Kennen go in.
It's all about the Freya.
And now Lissandra's free to follow up.
Right, so there's no more threat, no giant burst threat from Jensen. They're able to go in pretty freely, and they kind of get pinned up against Baron as well.
And I think what stands out before this fight, especially with that Gnar ulti, is that they just weren't actually looking at the itemizations. A lot had a QSS, so if you're actually, or is it a QSS or a Crucible, so being able to actually disengage out of the CC is so important when you're playing one of these carries that your main role is to just crowd control the carries. And if you're not paying attention to this, you're going to pay for it. And which also is a reminder of the first blood that happened in mid lane, where Jensen died with Flash and Cleanse, could have easily dodged out of that misusage of the Gragas Slam, where you can just auto and then flash out of it instantly. So maybe a little bit of nerves or hesitation.
Very much so. We'll be tracking to see if the mechanics improve throughout the rest of the series. Our final fight came 46.5 minutes in. This is a 4-for-0 in favor of Envy near the Elder Dragon.
And this is because Meteos isn't there. It's nice and easy to start this dragon. And once you have Elder, you really have no chance. It's Sivir. You're going to belt.
And, I mean, Seraph AoE. It's the whole team's AoE, actually, if you really think about it. Gragas AoE, Lissandra AoE, Sivir AoE, the burn is going to apply to everybody. I think they had 2 dragons or something at this point, so it's not huge, but it's substantial, and the fight's pretty easy to run through because they had pretty good access onto the
Right, and C9 made their best efforts to wait out those cooldowns, those key cooldowns in the Lissandra ultimate, and using Lissandra's E in order to keep Kennen out of the fight. But as you mentioned, just the sheer damage increase off of ricochets, for example, on a Sivir, and her ability with her ultimate to close the distance, there was no kiting it all the way back to our base.
I think the problem was that Cloud9 fell too much into the game plan of Envy, which is just, we're going to just 5-man brute force fight you and beat you every single time, whereas you have the Ashe, you have the Tahm Kench, you have globals, you have a Syndra and the Gnar that can split push. So being able to play the game plan, use the arrows, and we saw just how effective the snowball was. Off that first turret, you go middle, bam, 2 turrets right off the bat. Why not keep doing that the entire game? It just stopped for some reason in the mid game. Would have liked to see them continue on that track.
All right, best of 5 series means we're looking out for adjustments. We're going to see who's going to adapt better moving into game 2. So with that, Envy has chosen red side. They've elected to stay on red side here, maybe perhaps still looking for those strong counter picks and strong lanes. But your guys' thoughts on adaptations moving into game 2 from either team?
You got to get rid of Sivir.
Yeah, I think Sivir's a big one too. What's interesting is I think Syndra is very hard for Envy to deal with in lane in terms of their champ pool, but it was kind of hard to play Syndra in that game in terms of targets. You don't really want to ult Lissandra. You don't really want to ult Kennen before he pops his Zhonya's.
Double Zhonya's.
Yeah, there's double Zhonya's as well as the self-ult.
Braum is huge.
And Braum is a huge blocker on Syndra ult. So I think it was difficult to play the Syndra in the later game, but I think from the lead that they had with it, it shouldn't have shaken out that way. So I'm interested to see how the Syndra pick plays into the future games.
Okay, so we're looking for maybe a Sivir ban or takeaway on the side of Cloud9. So either way, they're the ones that have to react and adapt. As they lost and they're staying on the same side, they're going to have to look for a new strategy. Team Envy has come out to an early lead in this series, but we'll see if Cloud9 can tie it up after game 2. That hits your browsers in just a few minutes, so don't go anywhere.
Cloud9 versus Envy in our first matchup of the quarterfinals.
All right, guys, remember, this is playoffs.
Yeah.
We need to win this shit.
We are stronger than them mentally.
Flank from Sir. Slicing Maelstrom, he flashes in on 3. A 4th is going to enter. Jensen gets out on the side, and he may be able to deliver damage back.
Hey, we're fine. This is really good. This is really fucking good. Fight, guys, fight.
I still have ulti. I can't really
An impact throws himself too far in. Lot is able to take him down, and Seraph moves forward with the slicing Maelstrom. Keeps himself alive.
I'm going. Syndra. Ash. We can't.
And game number 1 is going over to Envy for momentum in the quarterfinal series.